Reef, while you're here, could you lift up any questions
Yes, I
or
can.
messages for Niko? Okay, cool.
I think
Oh, there's a lot. Okay.
we need critical thinking. Asked
Uh-huh.
if you were gonna do any reporting from Cuba, Niko. Um,
Uh, so I can't answer that question right now.
I feel you. Okay.
I hear what you're saying. It's a great question. I can't answer it in the moment. But
Okay.
it's I will say this. It's something that has been discussed in length by my people at MCSC and the people that would help facilitate that trip. And the reason why it was because of what took place with the SOS Cuba situation. I mean, like for me, I lived in Miami. I was on Calle Ocho when all those protests were going on. And I know I was joking, but I was also being serious, right? So these protests were massive. These parades were massive. And like the ambulances outside, the cops were protecting them. I'm like, from who? I don't know. But like we're protecting like the protesters. It was bizarre. I'm like, hey guys, y'all don't think this is weird? They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, says, when do cops protect protesters? That's not normal. That's right. It means you're on the wrong team. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you guys, but generally, if cops protecting your protests, you're on the wrong team. Yeah. And so, and we saw all the misinformation that was out there, right? Because a lot of Cubans here, they don't know. They actually have zero idea what's going on in their country, and even the older Cubans are literally relying on what their grandparents, who unfortunately were probably like racist as hell and corrupt. That's which is how they got their fortune. They're relying on what they're telling them, and so when you have people who they're like, oh man, it's an authoritarian dictatorship and they don't really have a democracy. And I'm like, bro, they have like 60,000 people actually like run for office.
They have the highest literacy rate in the world, right?
Yeah, like 99% literacy rate. Like their legislature is 50% male, 50% female. And then like they discovered the cure to cancer or lung cancer and put in the fucking inhaler.
And they have healthcare. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like their problems are almost exclusively because of the embargo.
These sanctions. Yep.
And people will say, oh well, I'm like, because you're like Fidel. So the way that they take things that happen in like countries like Cuba or Venezuela and pretend like a lot of it is not normal for the world. Fidel's role in that particular case was very similar to what Winston Churchill's would have been in the UK at the time, as in like he was like the commander in chief, but the legislature, because like no man is that damn good where he can just he will be the most efficient and effective dictator in history if he was able to get all of that done. Such a high literacy rate, have a 50% male, 50% female legislature, able to desegregate, able to do all this crazy, is still able to work with other countries and still even providing aid to other countries in Cuba's heyday. Like you can't do that by yourself. I'm sorry, you just can't do it.
Yeah.
And him being in power for that long isn't weird, actually, because it's normal that when you have a leader that people trust, especially when they're going up against the U.S. empire and willing to stand up to them, you don't want that leader to leave. Part of the reason the United States has these term limits that were recently implemented in the FDR era is because of what transpired that almost led to us having a socialist president who openly was going to do, who's Henry Wallace, was openly told, hey, bro, when I get in power, dog, all the African colony shit that UK got going on, yeah, that's dead. We're not supporting that no more. Like the shit that's happening in the Caribbean, we're not supporting that no more. Desegregation, lands back to the indigenous. Like we're not going to wars anymore. I'm staying out of it. And that's how we got Truman, because they cheated Henry Wallace. He's the first person who was a vice president to an incumbent who was replaced. Because he was cheated, and they found the dumbest guy they could find, the most racist guy they could find, put him in power. Now you have the CIA and the atomic bomb. That's how it goes. And that FDR had 4 terms, and that's the only reason Henry Wallace is going to be able to take over. And they were like, no, we can't have that happen. So term limits, and they made it seem like it was about we have to make sure we cede power, that people don't get too greedy. That's undermining the will of the people. That's why countries like Venezuela, Bolivia, Chile, a lot of these I think Chile actually does have term limits now, but that's because that's something that we did when we overthrew several of their governments. We do that. We make sure, because we can't take power without a transition of power happening every single term or every other term, and give it time to prepare, because we know that's how we took over Ukraine. the transition of power, right?
Yeah.
Iraq, transition of power. That even in Afghanistan to a certain degree, transition of power, like we did it in Iran when we overthrew Mossadegh in 1964 or 54, excuse me. So like that's what we've always done, and so Cuba has this that people believe that Cuba is not a democracy, and like Cuba has a more secure democracy than we do at the end of the day. But but we need more people now to go there directly and report and expose, like, yeah, these are a lot. Like people still believe that they call it the Castro regime still. They literally still call it the Castro. What? Like, hold up, I'm like, damn, I didn't know like Castro came back from the dead and took back over.
Well, and you know, there was a window of time where you were allowed to travel to Cuba, and then the window closed again. So,
yeah, but which I knew was coming because people were actually starting to see the truth, and Cuba's economy was about to start booming. Right. Then they want to be there. And it would have been like counterproductive to the original reason why we overtook Cuba, which is they are extremely competitive economically if they are allowed to flourish. Many of the countries in the Caribbean. And we can't have that. I mean, Cuba's massive. People don't know how big Cuba is. Cuba's massive. Even though it might not look like it on the map. But that they have a huge agricultural economy. The weather, beautiful, the people, beautiful, the healthcare, wonderful. Like that makes you a problem. We don't like to compete economically. I don't know why people. I know people think capitalism is about competition, the free market. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. It's about crushing your competition at all costs and reducing competition in the free market.
Right.
Which leads us to the next question in chat a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
Jared Brown asks, corporations are destabilizing the world economy. How do we destabilize corporations? Is the question.
I want to add a caveat to that. I think that corporations are, with the help of the intelligence community, and Niko and I were talking about that for a minute before the show. So what do you think, Niko?
I mean, I think it's both, right? It's corporations on behalf of and with the help of the intelligence community. But the intelligence community in some cases on behalf of corporations, right? They're almost inseparable. I mean, a lot of people don't know how Silicon Valley is literally just one big CIA operation. I mean, like that's not even hyperbole. You look at
they revealed that with Facebook, that reporting that
Alan McLeod,
Gray Zone did, with Facebook.
Gray Zone just did another. They did another report recently.
McLeod did one on some Facebook exec, I think.
They're completely embedded at the leadership level with CIA and former CIA.
So funny story. So once again, this is just like I was talking about this way too soon, I guess. In 2017, it was 2017 to 2018. I literally did a story about how to make a long story short, the day that Facebook became a thing was the day that the CIA ended this department that was solely dedicated to trying to map out where everybody would be at, what you would look like as you got older, your family, like a database. They wanted a massive database to track you, but they couldn't get people to volunteer for something like that. Like, hey, you want to come join the CIA's massive database? So what was the way to get you to, and so this company comes out of fucking nowhere. And to be quite frank, I was there for the whole MySpace, Facebook, Twitter thing. I was there in high school and as a young adult in college. And Facebook was trash. Nobody wanted to use Facebook. It was not good. It wasn't even profitable at the time. Like everybody, no. Like Zuckerberg became worth $80 billion because of the anticipation of it being profitable. I'm like, well, how did he even get into the room with the right people to get to this point where he knew it would be profitable? Like that's not really how venture capitalism works. Not like to that degree, because you're not gonna be able to convince me in any world that like Zuckerberg is a fucking better businessman than Mark Cuban, for example. It doesn't make any sense. And so you look at the Facebook situation, and then the person who was in charge of that program ends up working in Facebook, literally from the CIA. And this is I was reporting this years ago. People were like, "What? Are you for real?" And that I started seeing the pattern. So Elon Musk and Tesla, the best example I could think of. And I was so pissed when I saw people out here. Oh my God, Elon Musk is gonna say free speech.
Oh, right.
Oh man, yeah. Just, my hero. I'm like, yeah, sure. The South African, yeah, give it, like, bro, like it's like South African, damn, like
emerald mines.
He like avoided. He always says, I just didn't want to go in the military and oppress Africans. And I'm like, bro, you haven't mentioned the African people y'all been stealing from. You and your family have been stealing from since its inception. Like, since you left Africa. Like, let's be honest, right? He's never even tried to apologize for the shit. Just pretend like it never happened. And yeah, I'm sure that's why. You just didn't want to go to the army because you don't like actually doing any fucking work. That's Elon Musk. Elon Musk actually doesn't like the fucking work. So Tesla, he didn't even invent Tesla, okay? He pops up as effectively an undocumented immigrant because he illegally migrated to Canada. And it's weird that nobody ever talks about that. For all you MAGA people out there that seem to fucking love Elon Musk and y'all don't like undocumented people coming to steal your jobs, like, y'all don't have a problem with this guy coming in here and becoming a billionaire after being undocumented and never having to address why he was able to migrate to a different country and then come into the US undocumented. But, you know, different conversation for a different day. Right. So doesn't invent it, actually has a hostile takeover of Tesla. People don't know that. His takeover of Tesla was hostile. It wasn't his. He seems to be very good at hostile takeovers, by the way, which you can't do to this degree unless, obviously, you know somebody, right? So that happens. He ends up getting, Tesla gets subsidies on subsidies on subsidies on subsidies on subsidies at the federal level, at the state level, which, okay, cool. They're like, well, it's because he's doing something great for the world. First of all, government don't give you fucking subsidies for doing great shit for the world. It's not how the government works. I think we all know that. So on the other side of this fence way over here, that nobody's paying attention to, because usually for this particular part of the story to get exposed, a conservative-ish or a libertarian type of person would have to expose it. And the reason why is because of who it involves. It involves China. People don't know. This man has a factory in China. In fact, it's one of the largest factories, if not the largest in the world for him. And he has exclusive rights to electric vehicles as far as like, and he has a benefit that no one else has actually been able to have, which is he's the only one who's able to own something that massive, a corporation that big in China, without having to work with a Chinese business partner to do it. And his factory was allowed to stay open throughout the entirety of the pandemic, and no one else in China could do it. So somehow this man has managed to have both governments under his thumb. But in my estimation, it's not because he has both governments under his thumb. I believe to a large degree the oligarchs of both government, or at least the governments and the oligarchs in China's government, are using him, he's working for them effectively, which is how you fast forward to SpaceX. Everybody thought it was about space travel. I already knew what time it was. I'm like, that's stupid. It's not happening. Turns out, oh, nope, just a weapon system that can travel weapons around the world in less than an hour. Yeah. And he has a bunch of contracts with the Pentagon. Why? Because that was what this was about. It's always about building up his brand, building up his legacy, consolidating all these different resources and all these different companies to get what they want without ever being directly attached to it. That's what Peter Thiel's role is in society lately. Even though he seems to be trying to deviate from that. I guess he realized he was getting used up. He probably didn't like it that much, but they were kind of almost started replacing Peter Thiel with Elon Musk lately. And I do believe that part. Yeah, I do believe that part of the attempted hostile takeover with Twitter was, well, I don't know if I think that might have been actually Elon. I think Elon was like flying off the handle and like decided I'm gonna try to do something altruistic and magnanimous. And part of the reason I think that stock started actually taking a massive hit when they did was to stop Elon from buying it, because it would have gotten him some autonomy from this contract, whether or not it be official or otherwise, that he's in with the government, where he can be killed at any moment. The moment they flip it, not killed literally, but his billions can be reduced significantly at any moment. Like whenever he announced, he said, actually, I think I'm done with SpaceX. Like, remember, like that happened and everybody kind of forgot about it. And then Tesla stocks plummeted and it made no sense. Like, why are Tesla stocks plummeting? Because he's pulling out at SpaceX. And why is the only way I can invest in SpaceX is if I invest in fucking Google. Right. That's who owns SpaceX, which is what? Like a lot of how are you getting contracts with the Pentagon? Like a lot of the PayPal mafia, like the rest of them, like with Peter Thiel, with you know, so they're connected to a lot of media and stuff like that now too. So, you know, super fun to watch those monies fly.
So,
yeah, and I'm going to ask you one final question here, because we're
sorry
running.
for the super long-winded answers.
Oh no, I love it. I mean, I learned a lot in that answer. A couple of things that I didn't really have. I was wondering about the kind of world stage that Elon was kind of having this thing about.
He's
Twitter
been able to keep it relatively quiet, right?
Yeah,
like he keeps it relatively quiet, but because that's how the duopoly works, right?
Sure.
Like I am a leftist, and so most leftists aren't going to say anything that makes like China look negative. But I'm also like black, and like I'm very aware of what's going on with Africa, with China, which a lot of people don't know about. That's a different conversation. And so I just try to take things for what they are rather than what I want them to be, because we need to stop operating like that and assuming that these powerful government entities in any capacity are altruistic. Right, like we just got to stop that. Like we got to start being honest.
It's not. Yeah, they're not.
We're relying on that truth being exposed.
Right. Exactly. Well said.